Hey, what's up guys, how's it going? It's your boy, and I don't really make videos like this, but I really want to talk about this video right here, how we built a $2,000 custom gaming PC by none other than the Verge, the most trusted source for anything ever. But the reason I'm talking about this is because this video is just so bad. This guy does not know what he's doing. It looks like they just took one of their staff members, gave him a little like pamphlet on how to build a computer, quote unquote, and then had him record this video. So let's take a look at it. I'll just comment where it needs to be commented, or where comments are needed. As you see, I already disliked it because I watched this once. I couldn't watch it again because I felt like I was going to get an aneurysm out of sheer stupidity. But nonetheless, let's watch.
So a few years ago, TC, or Managing Editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date, and it's definitely not going to hold up for Battlefield 5.
Your video is still out of date. I wouldn't even call it out of date, just useless. My apologies.
So let's build a new one. You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go all out, so I spent around $2,000.
That's implying that anything under $1,000 wouldn't be considered a gaming PC, which I totally disagree with. I built a gaming PC, well, a budget gaming PC for $200. So do not devalue budget gamers, The Verge. They're probably never going to see this video, but I'm taking my anger out.
A PC like this is going to be able to play most games at ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table.
They were actually not wrong.
Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working
Wait, hold up.
Aims at ultra settings. So, what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table.
Alright guys, so if you don't have a table like that you can work on, just give up. Do not build on anything other than a table. Oh man.
Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working surface layered on top of it. Thermal paste applicator. An Allen wrench, some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
Those aren't tweezers, they're zip ties.
A Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
Wait, hold up. So if you want to build a computer, don't go out and buy like a $1, screwdriver that could do perfectly. Instead, go buy yourself a Swiss Army knife. There's no exceptions, no substitutions. You need this or else you can't do it, just like you need the table or else you can't build it.
And last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you and the parts. These are the parts you're going to need, but more...
Another thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to destroy this video. Anti-static wristbands are supposed to be connected to the ground. You're just... That's not how it works, buddy. Like, I swear, like these big media companies are just... There's no words.
Importantly, before we get there, we need to understand what these parts are doing and how they interact with one another. To better understand the parts that make up a desktop, let's try to understand them individually. The processor is like the computer's brain, a base of calculations that control everything the computer does. The motherboard is like the foundation, serving as a main structure for all other parts to be added to. It also allows the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes it kind of like a nervous system. Graphics cards are responsible for rendering and processing visuals into what you see on screen. Our PC's power supply is of course channeling electricity, in that it adjusts and provides the right amount of energy to keep it running. Last but not least, RAM, or random access memory, and your hard drive are good examples of short-term and long-term memory, respectively. If you want to better understand what kind of computer to build, then first figure out what you want to use it for.
That's probably the only factual thing in this video.
A gamer might care more about a graphics card than, say, a video editor who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files. If you're building a budget build for video streaming, say under $1,000, you want to focus on parts, like a Core i5 or Core i3 processor, that require less energy. They'll be less powerful, but then you'll be able to scale back the cost of several other parts. And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build, there are sites like PC.
These guys are overcomplicating it. Like, it is not that complicated. Just If you want 16 gigs of RAM, get it. The more the merrier. There's no, oh, this is only for this. If you want to do this, no. Yes, you can build a computer, you know, oriented or whatever the word is for that. For like, you know, video editing, you want to get like a Ryzen CPU because they're better at productivity. Or if you want to do gaming, Intel is still the king of gaming, so you might want an Intel CPU. But like complicating this and like separating into categories of which you should put more emphasis on is just ridiculous, and it could probably scare people off from wanting to build.
cpartpicker.com that helps show presets for which parts fit together, which sort of part conflicts you might have, and where to find deals on new parts.
That site is actually very helpful.
We have a lot of boxes and a lot of PC parts, so it's best you unbox them, isolate the parts that you really need, place items.
Did he just like rip open
and make sure that they all fit, and then
the PSU?
And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate. You should be really careful with them.
Wait, what did he say?
Some notes aren't working. And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate. You should be really careful with them. And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board.
Okay, so this is where they're wrong. You don't want to throw the motherboard in there first. You want to get all the things that would be harder to put in otherwise. So, like, let's say, for example, the CPU. You don't need to have it in the case to put it in. But if you have it in the case, this case is quite open, but I can't say that the same for, you know, many other cases. Depends on what you got. So, instead of listening to him, you should put in your CPU first and RAM. That's literally like, just get it out of the way, put that in, and then you can slot in your motherboard into your case.
I chose Asus's Z370 motherboard for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of
I/O shield, I/O plate, whatever you want to call it. It's not called a brace.
the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in, because there's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the case and clasp onto the frame. And this
video is so painful.
Otherwise, you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes. We're just going to start installing all 8 screws.
Like, imagine this as making a peanut butter jelly sandwich. First you get your bread, and then you put your peanut butter and jelly, and then you're done. This guy's like, put your peanut butter and jelly on the table, take the bread, put it on top of that, smear it around, and then put it together. That's literally how this is going.
So next we're going to install the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM.
Again, that wasn't like detrimental, but like most, there's a lot of cases where they don't allow you for much like wiggle room when if you install this or the motherboard first.
Megahertz, I believe. So it's pretty fast. And
that's not that fast actually.
That speed, which is most important.
That's like standard DDR4 speed.
And just aligning the stick with the
this is probably the most painful part of this entire video.
middle of the strip, not with the end, and just lining that up with the logo. So once you hear that solid clasp and you don't see the gold connectors on the
click,
side
not
anymore,
clasp.
that's when you know the RAM is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive.
Okay, so if you look real closely, the RAM is right next to each other. But if you actually knew what you're doing, you're supposed to space it out. If you have 4 RAM slots on your motherboard, they'll be different color. Like let's say on that motherboard, I think it was gray and black. You want to put them in the corresponding color. So his 2 RAM sticks, he would want to put in the gray slots. They're separated by bunches of 2. So there's 1 gray slot on this bunch, or on the left, and then 1 on the right. You want to put them in the corresponding color. This is just...
Or in this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid state drive so that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy. This is from
You're worried about messy wires and whatnot, but you're doing everything backwards.
You can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by 1 screw and the latch, so it's really simple and really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly and you want games to load quickly. So
unless you're willing to drop like a good few hundred on an M.2 like that actually has like enough memory to hold enough games that you want to play, then I wouldn't be talking. Because he's acting like, and I'm pretty sure the money he got for this computer is not his own. So again, this is just, I don't know, this is ridiculous. I don't even know if I said that right, but
That's why it's best if you use an SSD.
don't listen to him. If you want a hard drive, get a hard drive. They're cheaper and they have more memory. Unless you have the money, of course, to buy an expensive SSD, then by all means do it, because it is the better option.
Okay, so step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked, and so it's a pretty easy installation. You're just going to find the gold connectors, and you're going to line this bracket with the back end bracket of your PC case. Now, which lane you choose,
I feel like this guy has a
depends
bracket
entirely
fetish.
on what other parts you're going to put in the system. I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom, and I don't want to cover it. I just think it looks nice.
You always go with the top
Click
one.
down. Take your remaining brackets.
The rest are for Crossfire or SLI if you have the graphics cards for it.
You don't have to screw these in. They get bolted down by the back end bracket. And your GPU is installed. Power supply time. I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough headroom for
Because Corsair only has one power supply that offers 850 watts.
racing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have to upgrade it again. So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads,
Those aren't insulating pads.
so the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system.
Those are anti-vibrating pads. Because your power supply has moving parts in it, and if it was just touching the metal, it would vibrate. And you won't get shocked because these really don't ever short circuit, or, you know, especially if you get like an 80 plus bronze or silver, anything above certified power supply, which I think he has.
The system. So just take it in, slide it in nice and easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right.
The fan of the power supply is facing inwards, which is never a good idea. You should have it facing outwards so that it can pull in more air. And it has more access to air.
Right up against the frame. Now you just take the required screws and you tighten and screw in.
Oh man.
So next step, we're going to install the CPU core. In this case, it's going to go on the top end of the case, and we're just going to have the hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later. Always be sure to try to place it in the system
If you notice, there's no fans on that radiator.
first before you install it, because you can see it takes up a lot of space. But in this case, no pun intended, it fits in perfectly,
Ha ha.
and we're going to start screwing it in. So there's nothing special about this screwing process. They're just
Error number 7 million. You don't have any fans on your radiator, so there's literally no point. It just acts like a screen. And the long screws are for when you have your case fans on it, your radiator fans, whatever. And if you screw those in all the way down without the fan on top to act as kind of like a barrier or like a cushion for the screw, you can actually damage the radiator itself because it's too long and it'll just pierce. So good job, Verge.
just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever. So next up, cables. Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of daunting at first, so you always have to find the one.
Wrong. He has a modular power supply. Not all of them come like that. There are non-modular power supplies that come with all the cables hooked up to it already, and they're not, you can't take them out like this one. That's the name modular. You can put in cables as you need, so you don't have extra cables just hanging around.
Ones that are going to fit. In this case,
And you're supposed to do this before you put in the power supply. You're just making your life harder, my guy.
you need to match those cables with the correct descriptions on the power
Why do I have this feeling that he's just reading a script and then just kind of winging it? Because that's what it looks like right now.
supply. Next step is we're connecting the power supply to the motherboard with a 24-pin cable. We're just matching that cable from the motherboard, threading it through the back, and attaching the 24-pin header to the power supply so that we can have one of the connections complete. The next few additions will be for the GPU, for any specific ports that the case has, for any lighting that the case has, the CPU cooler, anything else really. We're installing the CPU, the heart of the computer, or the brain, depending on how you look at it. So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard. We're just going to take this little plastic part out. Just toss that out again.
You don't even know if you might need that later. What if you want to sell that motherboard or something? Oh.
Now we have an exposed CPU holder, or rather,
Not a holder, it's called a socket.
slot on the motherboard.
It's called a socket, oh my god.
CPU applicator. This is a special little part that not everyone may get, but
Literally no one gets those. Like, it's just... It's very, very rare, I guess.
this motherboard that we got from ASUS definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool.
So if you guys want to build a PC and don't have that motherboard, you're screwed. Because you don't have that CPU holder or whatever that is. All jokes aside, it's way easier to install it without that thing in his hands.
It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU.
That literally has nothing to do with it. Every CPU is generally the same size and they go in the same way. So I don't know what a 7th or an i7 hexa-core CPU has to do with anything.
Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go, and it supports...
Yeah, we got one. We got a CPU that you can literally buy off of any major retailer in the world. Yeah, that one, we got it.
overclocking. So what having this little installer does for you is it's basically a brace that you can apply right to the CPU and light it up with the triangles that you'll see on the bottom left corners. And this will make it easier for us to apply it to the motherboard.
Installing a CPU for chumps.
And then apply thermal paste and then apply a CPU cooler on top. And we're just going to carefully lean it down into the system.
Did he touch the CPU? Oh, he did. Oh my god. He touched it. You're not supposed to do that.
So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU.
Oh god.
Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it, but it's usually not enough.
Yeah, because whenever they send out those CPU coolers, they're just like, we're only going to give them slightly under what they need. I mean, it's always good to have thermal paste, and if you feel like that there's not enough on there, then by all means add some more. But look what this guy does.
It's good, essentially PC building practice.
Don't talk about that if you don't know what you're doing.
To have a little bit extra and layer it on top.
Look at you're not. Oh my god. This is from. I'm just gonna say what Bitwid said because I saw his video on this. You're not icing a cake, dude. Use the P method, or I don't know, like, why you gotta douse that thing with thermal paste? You probably use the whole tube on it.
The final portion is
oh
to
my
add
god.
the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're gonna.
Oh my god! Look at that. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that ladies and gentlemen is how you get thermal paste to leak over the side of your CPU. That's why the dot method, the P method, whatever you want to call it, is probably the best way, because you put it in the middle of the CPU, just a dot, and then once you put down your cooler on it, it spreads it perfectly. You don't have to do this. That is terrible. And this guy talks about good PC building.
See that there are 4 brackets, or rather like screws in here.
He actually used bracket correctly.
Brackets and mirrors right here. And they're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it. Like basically keep it cool.
That's the point of a CPU cooler.
Thumb screws like this, and just screw them on. So now that our internals are done, we're gonna put.
He didn't even like explain that the cooler he has is a closed loop liquid cooling system. That's not the only kind of cooling system there is. Just you should make that apparent, you know, like make sure that that's not the only way to do it, and not all, you know, liquid cooling systems come with the thumb screws. You got to make sure you tell people these things, because people watching these videos are like clueless as to how to build PCs.
So we fully built the PC.
Look at that cable management. You have like one of the sickest cases I've seen. Like that's a really nice case. Like tempered glass on here, the front side or the front panel and the side panel. And look at how nasty that looks. Like I'm pretty sure there's room back here to put all these cables.
Everything's put together, and we got to the post screen. So what's next? Well,
There's still no fan.
you need a USB flash drive
Or
with
fans.
your Windows installation media on it, and of course a license key. So I plugged that up, installed Windows in a couple of minutes, installed a bunch of drivers, and now we have a fully functioning gaming PC ready to run some games. Right now I've got Armor 3 running at maximum settings, native resolution, which is 1080p HD, and it's running pretty smoothly. Like, I'm averaging 70 and 80 FPS, and this is normally like a very intensive game to run, and it's still doing a pretty good job. So right now,
You have like a top-end graphics card. What are you expecting?
playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite games. I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well.
One of your favorite games. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just ripping them up because this video. It's your favorite game and you're playing against bots and you're losing. Shows how much you like playing.
But otherwise, like, this is pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer. Test
Oh my
stuff
God.
out, and hopefully have really high frame rates, like
Filthy Yasuo main.
I am right now. I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game to that frame rate, because I can get around 300 FPS playing League
A potato can get 120 frames per second in League. Relax.
on maximum settings, which is a little bit absurd, and you don't really need that, so I locked it. Building a gaming desktop has been a great experience. I'm able to max out a lot of my favorite titles, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming titles like Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077 without worrying too much about the parts I have. When ray tracing GPUs come out, for example, I'll be able to upgrade without having to buy a completely new system, and
You can throw any graphics card into any motherboard because the slot is the same. I threw a 1060 into an old Dell Optiplex's motherboard, and it worked. So I don't know what you're getting at here.
if I have
I'm
a problem
certain
down
it's
the line,
scripted.
I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced rather than losing my whole computer. And of course now we also have a computer to test and benchmark games here at the Verge.
So that was it. I don't want people thinking that I ripped on the guy. I'm actually ripping on the Verge because I'm pretty sure this is all scripted. Like, there's no way you can come out with the confidence of saying you're going to build a gaming PC and then do everything wrong. Well, most of everything wrong. I mean, it's still a functioning computer, but that is not the correct way to do it at all. Like, this is beginners, like, mistakes, but it's intentional. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy's a nice guy, you know. I have no worries or problems with him. I'm pretty sure he's just doing his job. But yeah, that was the video. That got me heated, so I thought I'd make a video on it. But yeah, peace.
Bitch, you make they call me Superman. Deep tall hoes in a single bound. I'm single now. Got no ring on his finger now. I never let another chick bring me down in a relationship.